Om Shanti, everyone. Welcome to our Thursday night insight sessions. I see a lot of familiar faces, and we have a few new faces here this evening also, so welcome. So I thought I'd just deviate from the theme for a few minutes. Tony, do I have a few moments? All right. No, the rest of the hour is yours. That's our speaker for this evening. But because we have some new people here, I'd like to ask a very general question. Um, Everyone else has been coming on a pretty regular basis. How is being in here different from being out there? Why do you come in? And by the way, you were great last with Sabita, and I love that she got you all talking to each other and everything. Yeah, it was nice. Nice to hear your voices. So think about it a second. What is it that draws you here to these new people? What do you want to say your names?
Martha, Diana.
I, yeah, you say it so beautifully. I can't roll the tongue like that. Welcome. No, they're not new. You're not new, are you? No. Yes, of course. Yeah. Speak.
No, you asked why is it different to come here than because at home there's the atmosphere of my home and here it's a different atmosphere. It's peaceful, it gets me away from my everyday it's as soon as I walk in, it's like a sensation of peace. So that's worth the whole thing. And unless there is a snowstorm, I would come. I wouldn't. Then I could do Zoom, right?
Thank you. Yeah. As the song just said, if you're listening to the lyrics, I have my peace of mind. That's why we come here at a time when the world is making it harder and harder for us to accept the reality of what's going on out there. We have a place to go. Is there anyone who's ever, when you're not here, stopping and you feel as though you can close your eyes maybe and feel like you're here? How do you do that? Yeah, you want to? Just speak like.
I sit in my backyard and I just listen to the birds and smell the air and do breathing and listen to the water running in the pump. And I say, how lucky am I?
Beautiful. Anyone else want to add anything? So we come for peace and we learn how to be peaceful with others in relationship. And we learned here that peace is an inner state of mind. No matter what's going on outside, we can pause, we can turn on that fountain or the trickling water or sit in nature, and we can find something within ourselves. And that's what we call meditation. So a lot of people feel confused about meditating. It's when you lift, I think, it's when I lift myself out of the hubbub, the chatter. My mind's job is to not stop chattering. And when I can lift out of that, I'm no longer in this world, even if it's for a second. And that's what we practice here, right? Anyone else want to add anything? Okay, so tonight, Brother Tony is going, and you've met him before, most of you. Brother Tony is going to talk about the theme of the month that's ending now is a time of growth and renewal at a time when maybe we don't feel the world is growing and renewing, we can. So that's going to be an interesting topic. And tonight he's going to talk about creating a future. So if you think about it, we have three elements of time. We have the past, we have the present, and we have the future, right? So how many of you are planning for the future? You making plans? What kind of plans? Retirement, the inevitable, moving, downsize, right? We make plans, changing jobs. dying. You plan to die? What do you mean?
My son, my son keeps saying to my cousins, to my friends, you better come and visit my mother. She has not long to live.
Well, I'm glad you don't think that way. He says that to you. Well, you can choose to think the way you want to, right? Okay. So we have the outside and we have the inside. And we do make plans, but I think what Brother Tony wants to talk about this evening is the power we have to not be a victim of the world, but to be a master of what we want and creating that in the future, no matter what. So without further ado, Brother Tony, I'm going to invite you up here. And while he's coming on up, he is in the other life, an architect and a planner in New York City. And he's been a student of Raj Yoga meditation for over 20 years. He facilitates retreats. This is interesting for his professional community, mostly bringing a spiritual spin on it and bringing that spirituality that we learn here into everything he does professionally. That's the focus, right? Got that right? And yeah, in the context of his professional life. So, Brother Tony, thank you for coming to us this evening. Om Shanti.
Can everybody hear me? Good evening, everybody. Actually, it's still pretty early, it seems like. Days are getting much longer. When this theme of growth and renewal came out, it has so many connotations. Some of them are very cliche. And I thought, well, growth and renewal only happens in the future. You can't grow in the present. You're already here. So whatever you do, whatever you develop has to be something that happens in the future. So that's why I got the thought, let's talk about future. And what does it mean? How do we come about to create a future? Because we think of the future as something that we go through, get there. But I looked at this myself in my personal experience, and it's not quite as fluid as we would make it out to be. It's the future is a repository of of things that we want to do, we like to have, things that we can't do in the present. So we say we're going to do this in the future, or maybe it'll happen in the future. It's on things that we want, on things that we expect, good or bad. So the future becomes a kind of a holding place, kind of I had to use the Catholic analogy of purgatory, where a lot of stuff lays waiting for us to get there. Unfortunately for us, we don't get there sometimes. So I started thinking about what it really means to kind of define the future in a way that's tangible. So as I've always been told, well, Eric is not here, but I've also been told by Luis, make it personal, make it something that people will understand. So for me, the future has to do with arrival. That's the term that I came up with. So that to me is the future. And I use the analogy of when I was in high school and I was going to college, and the first one in my family that went to college. Actually, in my family, very few people even went through high school. So going to college was something significant. So when the letter arrived that said I was accepted, there was a sense of arrival. There was no future. It was arrival, something that I had thinking about, something that I planned for, that I wanted, obviously, had arrived. That to me was a kind of my own experience, the most important at that point was the most important effect in my life was I had arrived at something, didn't know exactly what it was. People told me it was good, but I had arrived. And then, of course, I went to college, and the whole process was a process of arrival. And I think that defined to me what the future needs to be. It needs to be something that you feel tangibly, that you feel viscerally, not just something that you're passing through. To make the comparison, my children grew up with two parents who had college degrees and had graduate degrees. So their going to college was not a big deal. They were just going to college. It's just the way it was. It wasn't a discussion. It wasn't a decision. It wasn't an arrival or anything. They just went to college. Ironically, I think I should have made a bigger deal of that because it took them a long time to find themselves where they want to go. Only now, pretty far along in their lives, are they be basically saying, you know, we really need to make a future for ourselves. Having degrees or even graduate degrees are not enough. You have to want to do something. You have to have a plan. You have to, again, create a future. So that analogy for me is still very compelling because you need to have a place that you want to be. It cannot just be a place that you go. I'm an architect and I do a lot of transportation planning. And there is actually a science, both in engineering and in art design. There is actually a science to departure, arrival, departure, and a departure and arrival experiences, and not just aesthetic in terms of the way people move. In the transportation industry, certainly you're familiar with it in airplanes. It was the same in trains when trains were more prevalent. So there is, in fact, in our own experience, this sense of arrival, sense of departure when you get on a plane, when you're going to the plane, when you get on the plane, when you arrive at the place you're going. I love plane travel. I love arrivals. I don't care where it is. Weehawken, New Jersey, I don't know. I love arrivals. To me, it's always great because I know I'm going to be someplace different than where I am. So that's just personal idiosyncrasies. But that is one of the critical things. You have to have a sense of where you want to be. So you need to really think about what the future is. Okay? It's not an expectation. That can't be the future. It's not, you know, or it's not a situation, well, I know I'm going to get there, so I'll have to deal with it when I get there. I'm arriving through. So that's not planning or creating a future. That's what we call life. And life is fine, and it is what it is. It's demanding, it can be rewarding, but we're talking about something that separates ourselves from that context and begins to say, okay, is there something else I could do? Is there something else that's of consequence that I can engage in? And I think that's to me the most compelling issue is, where do I separate my normal everyday life, and where is it when I'm creating something, when I'm defining myself in some new and different way? So the context of growth and renewal, the dynamic of growth and renewal of future is not about grand gestures. It's not about great schemes. That is actually a feature of the circumstances that you live. It's not about that. Although many people say that's the way the world is defined, but that's not the way we're defined. So it's not about these grand gestures. It's not about this is where this fantastic new vision of the world, of myself, and it's something a lot more subtle than that. And most of our lives are not full of grand gestures. That doesn't happen. You have marriages, you have other things happening in your life, but they're not this world defining situations. And frankly, some of the world defining situations that are happening now, you don't want to be in. So it's about your own specific journey. So you have to start with a reasonable understanding of where you are. Just start with, where am I? What is it that I want? Do I want to be happy or happier? Do I want to be more prosperous? Do I want to be more content, peaceful? You start with something that you want, that you'd like to achieve. That's kind of the beginning of the process, but you cannot do that by just saying, I want that. I want to be a better person. That doesn't work. We all want, people in death row want to be better people, okay? People everywhere want to be better people. That's not what this process is about. It's, what do I do? How do I define where I want to go? So our lives, like I mentioned, are full of contradictions and complexities and challenges. And they're not going to get any less challenging or any less contradictory or any less complicated the way the world is working right now. So we have to deal with it. You have to work with it every day. You have to deal with how you manage your existence in this very, very challenging and difficult world. So the future is not getting through a particularly difficult moment right now. Creating a future is about, where do you want to be and what are you prepared to do about it? But what you're prepared to do about it really depends very clearly on where you want to be versus where you are. Without that, you really haven't got a basis to take any action to make this happen. The term, and I discussed with Luis earlier, was realization. The future is realization. It doesn't just happen. You realize it. If it just happens, then you don't even notice it. It's a continuation of what's happening. It's when you come to a realization, when you come to an arrival. And is it something that's significant? Is it something that's meaningful? Doesn't mean that all the other things you're doing aren't meaningful. We're still living our lives, but where do we make some sort of effort to kind of move the dial to some place closer to where we want to be? So basically, to have a future as we define it, you have to create it. It's a process of creation. You're not just passing through time. Now, there's one activity that most of us are engaged in that has a very strong model for it. It's called having children. When we have children, the future arrives. It doesn't arrive, or sometimes it arrives because we want it to arrive, but it arrives. But it doesn't just happen, it arrives. It's a significant impact in your life. It's something it's a creation, obviously, and that creation has incredible impact on your existence going forward. That is where you start looking at what is the process of creating a future. When we create children, we definitely talk about creating a future. Very few people sit back and say, well, it doesn't matter. Just having kids, it's no big deal. Nobody says that. Even the nuttiest person in the world doesn't say that. It's no big deal. And certainly they don't say that when they have the child. Then if that attitude exists, it gets immediately wiped off. I have a friend of ours when I was having kids, and all of us were having children, and we were all not sleeping like for the first 3 months, 4 months. And this couple had this child, and the child, for some reason, for the first 3 months, slept. And so they weren't kind of superior, but they were sort of saying, I don't know what happened with you kids, because our kids sleep, there's no problem. And we were looking at them as, you don't know what you're talking about. This having a children is not sleeping for the first 4 or 5 months of their lives. Then their child woke up. And when we got together after that, they looked haggard. They couldn't keep their eyes open. They were completely overwhelmed because their child finally woke up at the 3 months and started crying for the next 4 months. So nobody gets away with it. Nobody gets away with having kids and not having to deal with the extraordinary impact it has in your lives in every single way. So this is the one, excuse me, the one activity that we can relate to, that changes our life. You examine it, changes your life. Obviously, not everything can be so momentous. Can't do this. First of all, we can't do it indefinitely, not that we want to, but it's a kind of a defining point in our existence. I always knew I wanted to have children. I'm not quite sure why, but I knew I wanted to have children. So when I got married, we had children. That was the plan. I don't know what I was thinking, but that's what I wanted to do. So, because I wanted to have children, that seemed to be a very important thing to me, and it still is. So we're past that. We've gone through all of this process. We have children. My children are grown. And what is it that takes us forward, that defines us? We're no longer trying to make a future for the kids, but we have to make a future for ourselves. It's not, the first step is to examine who we are. And this is a subject that we have here a lot. It's not what we are. Not that we're making widgets or fixing electrical systems or being a teacher or an engineer or whatever. That's not who we are. That's what we do. That's a what. That's what we're about. Who we are. What kind of people we are. What kind of person are we? That's the first step if you want to actually make a future. Unless you're an architect and you want to be an engineer, which is a very different situation. I'm not sure that really falls into the category of what we're talking about here. And that's really the most important moment for you to be able to say, okay, I'm going to make some changes. I'm going to get involved in making some changes, building things in myself that weren't there before. So, and I have to throw in the anecdote about the kids. The kids are grown. And if your life has a big factor of expecting them to come back and kind of take care of you, or acknowledge your existence, or even acknowledge your existence, most of us are disappointed. And my kids are wonderful children. I can't say they're not good children. I brought them here, and some of them actually hung around for several years. So they're good kids, but it's their life. They're no longer in my life in any way that really makes that kind of an impact. So the critical thing about this process of creating the future is to understand that this is something we have to do alone, by ourselves. You don't create a future with your kids. You don't create a future with your parents, with your spouse, even with your friends. The only way you create a future is alone, on your own, because that's the only thing that's sustainable. Anything else has to do with creating a certain level of dependence. And I'm not against having friends. I'm not against any of these things, but we need to separate ourselves from that and see what is it exactly that we want to do. Because you have friends, you have a spouse. You may have a lot of things in common, but there are things that you want to do. And you know those are things that you're never going to be able to do with this person because that's not their nature. And it's not that they're a bad person, it's just that's not their nature. But it's something that you want, something that's important to you. So that there's a sense of arrival in the context. In the context, you define this. And then you know that you're trying to create things. So it's a arrival of the future is a definition. And you're trying to create it, trying to form it. And then the most critical thing in terms of this process, when you really get to it, is that you're doing it alone. You're not doing it for or with anybody else. That is, to me, the most important thing. Again, with Louise, we were having a discussion about when you talk to people and the conversation is about what happened when they were children or when they got first married or what happened when this. And that's normal kind of banter. But if that becomes the only definition of your existence, then where are you? That is really important. To me, this happens to me all the time. I hang out with people and they tell me stories about their youth, about their relationships, all of these things. And you listen to them and you say, okay, these are valuable insights for me, but what are these things for them? What is it doing for them? I'm learning something about them, but what is it doing for them to tell me this? What value is there for them? I don't really talk about my past unless there's a particular occasion. Someone wants to know about it, in which case I'm glad to share it. I have no problem with it, but it's not something I kind of comes up all that naturally because it doesn't really do anything for me right now. It doesn't make things move. It doesn't move the dial. It's just something you may occasionally think about, but it's not really what makes me feel okay. I'm actually accomplishing something. So the issue is, okay, what do we want? Okay, what kind of future we want to make? I want to be a better person. It's not enough. What do you want to be? Do you want to be more accepting, more understanding, more loving, more compassionate? I mean, there are a whole bunch of qualities that we have as human beings that we say, well, it would be good for me to be able to have that kind of engagement with other people. That you can change, that you can look at, that you can create something in the future that takes you to that place where you are more compassionate, more understanding, more accepting. I mean, the quality list can be very long, but that's something that you can accomplish. being a better person is nothing you can accomplish. I'm not even sure what that means. So the issue has to be very specific. You have to look at it in the context of what exactly do you want to achieve? Wanting a better world. Right now, all of us want a much better world than what's happening out there. But what kind of world are we prepared to make? What kind of effort are we prepared to make to at least mitigate some of the unfortunate things that are going on in the world? That is really a underlying tenet, is what exactly that you want to do. What is the nature of the effort you want to make? Not that a kind of a general statement. So the process of doing this has the effect of essentially making you master creators. The moment that you sit back and say, okay, and again, this is in the context of your regular lives. In other words, your life has a stop. People that you're dealing with, jobs, family, relationships, they all continue to move along and you still have to deal with them. So this has to be something that you separate yourself from. That is mastering your situation. The minute you begin to remove yourself, then you're becoming a master of the situation. And that's how you begin the process of redefining the future, of creating the future. There are in literature, there are almost innumerable, there's unlimited number of books that talk about the spirit, about being spirited, about the spirit of the human beings and its qualities and what have you. And it's no accident, because throughout history, and obviously those of you who are here are also keenly aware that the spirit is the quality that brings you the strength to do things. It's the nature of your person, it's the nature of your existence that gives you the ability to make changes, to do things, to accomplish things. And that, I think, is kind of the underlying premise of this, that this comes from a spiritual base. And here we feel spiritual is a basis of being soul conscious. But that's not just not our opinion in this kind of context. I mean, there's philosophies that are very, very complicated and go on for many, many tomes. One of them, famous ones, is called The Phenomenology of the Spirit, which was very influential philosophical tome. So the spirit is an essential part of our entire existence, our definition as human beings. And this is the spiritual effort that we're looking at. What exactly are we? I mean, who exactly are we? And what do we want to do about it if we want to make some change? So it's very important that we put it in that context. And the other issue is, again, not just from here, but there is a whole bunch of literature. I was discussing this with Luis. I don't know the other people, but I do know the book called Mindfulness. And some of you may be aware of it. There was a big fad with this for a while back. And the mindfulness philosophy is surprisingly simple and succinct. People who are happy and defined by very, very specific psychological criteria. You know, not just happy, I think the person's happy. No, they have a specific set of criteria. People who are happy, as defined in the statistical analysis they've done, always have some idea of what they want. They start with wanting something. They know they have something they want. They have something they're looking for. That sounds like a very kind of obvious thing. But here's this woman who wrote, I think she's a social worker, who wrote a whole book about it, became a big fad, was on all the TV shows, saying something that seemed obvious, but apparently for some people it was revelation. People are happier when they know what they want to do. It's a real kind of clean statistical analysis. Not just, I think this is a good idea, not a philosophic statement. This was a social science kind of exercise. So that gives you a basis saying, okay, whatever it is that I want, if I go for it, if I look for it, I find ways to get there, I'm going to be happier. I mean, if happiness is one of your goals, that's one of the items. But happiness is a kind of a general thing. You need to define what is it going to make you feel content and peaceful. So it is not a kind of an elaboration of psychological techniques and assessments and what have you, and tinkering with your personality to kind of make things work in the present. Therapy and psychology have one very specific and important goal. It's to help you live in the present. That's what all that is. Help you live in the present, help you undo things that are making it difficult for you to live in the present. That's why it's important that we make the distinction. That's not what creating a future is about. It is about establishing a place where you want to be, not where you need to be. Because places that you need to be, you'll get to. That's a different issue. That they don't necessarily make you happy. It's a place where you want to be. That's kind of the underlying point of this particular discussion for me. It's not therapy. It's not reconciling yourself to the world that you live in, for which some people need some help because their world is particularly tumultuous and complicated and difficult. It is where you want to be. So the tools that you need to develop are the tools that first start with defining who you are. And then what do you want in terms that are doable, that are viable, that are understandable to yourself, at least. So that's what came to mind when we talked about growth and renewal. Growth and renewal is the process of change in some sort of direction that makes things better for you, makes you happier, makes you feel more accomplished, it feels more understanding, whatever those qualities are. They don't come from analysis, they don't come from therapy, they don't come from philosophy, although all of those things do give you some inklings. This mindfulness craze, which may be still around, was important because it quantified something that is obviously, I think, is very important. Knowing what you want, making you happier when you achieve it. And certainly all the issues regarding therapy in terms of dealing with especially the complicated world, that they're all very important, but they don't take you to a new place. Only you alone can take you to a new place. There is nobody else. Only your effort starting with your definition of where you want to go and what are the qualities that you need or have that you need to refine, we'll take you there. No therapy, no psychology, no philosophy, none of that. And trust me, I've read a lot of philosophy, so I searched a great deal in those books for this kind of material. But it's not there. If it was there, then there wouldn't be any need for anybody to do anything. You just read that and you're fine. But it's not the case. That is a process of creation and of mastering the process, which is the term that we coin here as being master creators. A master creator is not some sort of Michelangelic figure that's painting the Sistine Chapel. A master creator is a person capable of creating their own existence on the terms that they want. Now, that's a big deal. But just doing a little bit will make you a lot happier. Okay? Just getting a little bit of that will make you a lot happier. Yes, yes.
Anyone have a question or comment at this point?
Over here, over here.
Okay, once
Hold on a minute.
Mike,
We want to
we have
record this,
full,
record this for
Zoom.
posterity.
We have an invisible Zoom audience, right? Zoom people? Okay, so
Yeah, what do you do when you've reached a certain age where your future is a little different than the future of a younger age? What if you've reached, and I call the benchmark of 90? I think there are 3 benchmarks that I kind of follow. I think when you're 30, it's a benchmark. When you're 60, when you're a benchmark. And when you're 90, there's a benchmark. Now, what is the future of the person who is in their later life?
That is the point of this discussion, because if you're young, you have kids, you have spouses, you're doing things. The whole point of the future that we're talking about is one that's defined by you. When you're 60, when you're 40, when you're 60, when you're 80, when you're 90, when you're past the requirements of your family, is there something that you want? Is there something that you want for yourself that is not associated with your spouse, your children, your parents? So obviously you get older, the parents are not there, your friends. Is there something that you want that is going to make you feel better, more accomplished? It's not related to age. As long as you have the mental wherewithal to think this through, then age is not the issue. Only when you get to the point where you can't think it through, then maybe you have an issue with age. My dad died at 97, and at 90, he was completely in complete command of his faculties. And, his future, he watched baseball 10 hours a day, and when he was in season, and when he wasn't watching baseball, he had to sit and he had to tell you stories for another hour or two every time you went to see him, which was fine. It was kind of enjoyable. But he was conscious that there was a future for him. I remember I was living in India, so I wasn't living at home. I lived with him for a number of years until he died, actually. And I remember when I was calling him from India every week or so. It was an expensive call, so and I would call to find out how he was. And his response was, "Hi, I'm okay. Everything's fine. I'm good. I'm feeling good. Good. Okay, bye-bye." I went back to his baseball game. Now, I didn't get offended. I just want to know that he was okay. But he had a future. And his future didn't involve talking to me on the phone. That was not the future that he was looking at. He was looking for a future that had to do with his baseball game or some communication with some other relative or going to the store. He loved going to the store. Somebody opened a Trader Joe's open nearby, and he had that philosophy that food tasted better if it was cheap. So he would go to Trader Joe's all the time, buy humongous amounts of stuff that we couldn't eat. But, you know, that was his thing, you know. So, so he had, and he was 90 at this point. Actually, I went to Cuba with him when he was 90. We went to Cuba, and he was, you know, he wanted, he knew he wanted other things. He didn't linger on even when he was drowning us in stories. He was always putting them in the context of the present. So I don't think age has to do with it. What it has to do with it is clarity of your thinking. If you can still think, if you can still work out the existence of this crazy universe, you still have a future.
You say that the future is.
You have to hold it to your.
Oh, you say that the future is having children.
No, that was one future.
Well, that future. What about people? My older son and his wife decided not to have children. They have no future?
No. What I was saying was that we experience the creation of the future. Most of us have a direct, visceral experience, you know, we're palpable when we have children. The children come, they arrive, they become a defining quality in our lives. We have to grow and change. My comment was, when they stop being a part of your life, are you still part of theirs? Or are you going on with your life, doing what you need to do? Now, unfortunately, I'm from a Hispanic family. There's a lot of people that depend on their children to define their lives for them, which I think is a very bad thing. You have to define your own life. I mean, being with your children is fine. I love being with my kids. When my daughter comes to visit, which is more often than my son who lives 2.5 miles from me, but you know, okay, I'm fine. I'm very happy about that. But the issue is they don't define my life.
Right. Can I,
Sure.
you know, I want to, tell me if I'm on the right track. I want to take this up a notch to a spiritual level, Tony. Because we are in relationship a lot. And most of our acting on this stage called life has to do with interacting with other people, not just meditating alone. So for me, if you're talking about being the master of planning, the master planner, I know that for me, the past, especially the past 9-10 years here, has been to plan how I respond to people. And when I don't just react the way I used to, and I respond to people in a way that is my higher self. So for example, somebody insults me. They're wrong. I can defend myself. That will escalate an argument, right? For me, the higher self is often able to not do that, not feed the fire. The higher me, a lot of it learned here, is able to detach, you know, step back and say, he's having a bad day. Or he's a soul. Or it's, you know, so that to me, is that what you're talking about in planning your own? Because then I carry a new personality with me when and that's a way of getting by in this world that could be so trying and so difficult because everybody wants to smack everybody, verbally or otherwise. Everybody wants to be at war with somebody. And I don't have to play that game. I don't have to be a chess piece, a pawn on a chessboard. Is that what you mean by taking it in the direction you want it to go?
That's being a master.
That's the mastery.
Not the master creator, but the master of the situation.
But I'm creating a relationship. That's what I wanted to ask you. I am redefining my relationship with, let's say, my adult son that never was there. And everybody likes that.
You-
Not that we ever had a problem, we didn't, but it's a maturity. Is that what you're talking about?
Well, master creator is about change. Is about change in yourself. That's the most important thing. I think someone else had a question in the back. So it's one of these ladies did you raise your hand before? No, did you raise your hand back there? No? Oh, okay. I thought you raised your hand. I'm sorry. So the master creator is someone that's changing themselves, someone that's a adjusting their understanding of things to another level. Now, in terms of relationships with people, you may just at some point be equalizing the balance between people. And that is all that's needed, because anything more than that becomes.
That's a quantum change in me. That's a quantum.
Why is it
change.
a change in you?
Because I'm responding instead of reacting. I'm being more humane. I'm being more, less judgmental. And I'm able
Well,
to not take the insult
That's
as something personal.
That's the change.
That's huge.
The change is I am being more understanding. I'm being more humane. I'm being more accepting. That's the change.
Exactly.
Not responding versus
But
reacting.
who did it?
No, it's not a question of who did it. It's a question of what the change is. The change is the qualities. The qualities are the change. Not responding and not reacting and responding is a skill that you probably have because you were a
Exactly.
teacher, so you have for a long time. But right now, you're actually changing the quality of that engagement.
Right.
That's the creation. That's
So
changing.
the
the quality.
realization you were talking about had to happen before I could change my behavior
Yeah.
in the future. So this is
Yeah.
semantics.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
same-
No,
same
no,
thing.
it's definitely connected, but I don't want it to be associated. I don't want the association between respond and reaction, which is a skill that you of all people had earlier than most of us, because you were a teacher. And well, okay, all right, then, but the fact that you did things to yourself to make it more. And it's not that you're accommodating. See, the most important thing is you're not accommodating. You're actually changing to be a person that lives in that world,
Absolutely.
not an accommodation.
Right.
That's the change. That's the
Absolutely.
creation.
Absolutely. Thank you.
I have achieved this master. When I hit my 90s and I live alone and I have certain family problems, not big ones, but big enough, I detached myself because I needed to survive me so I could get out of their way and get out of my own way. I have achieved that. To get to that achievement was a tremendous amount of work and a tremendous amount of anxiety that I lived through, which might almost be physical as well as psychological. But I have achieved this goal. But in this achievement and in this age, there's a realistic vulnerability of reality that my body might give away, that my mind might give away. And I am at a stage now where my time is a little different than the time of a younger person.
Oh, of course.
And so I have achieved this reality. And I have a very successful life. It's continued. A car that's clean and working. A house that is aesthetic and a pleasure to come into. And at this age, it's quite an achievement. And it's quite lovely feelings when I get to it. But before I get to it, there's a lot of work.
Did you make any fundamental changes to reach the point where you had to be independent of all of these things and function on your own?
Yes.
Like what?
Like I get up to make myself healthy. Being healthy and being strong is very important.
But before you weren't taking care of yourself?
I take more time to take care of myself it's different. It's a different thinking. It's a thinking of making it easier for my family and easier for myself.
Okay, so that's a change. Yeah,
It's a big change.
there you go.
It's going into ancient time. I'm an ancient. I consider myself an ancient. And this ancient human being is, I can almost fall in love with myself. It's not narcissism. It's another kind of an achievement. And I've really reached it, but it takes a lot of work. It doesn't happen.
But is it where you want to be?
The where I want to be is peaceful in terms of dying,
Okay.
because I'm there. I never thought about it when I was 80. I'm thinking about it when I'm 90.
You know, I have to tell you when I went with my dad to Cuba, he was 90 years old. When we got to the hotel, the registrar saw my dad's passport and said, "Is this correct?" And he says, "Yeah, of course." So he went from behind the counter and shook his hand and says, "You are my new hero. You are my new hero." Because he was 90 years old. He was very much in command of his senses. So I'm saying the same thing. You're my new hero if you have that clarity of mind and that independence and still function. I mean, that's phenomenal. And I absolutely agree. You probably had to go through a lot of things to get to that point and to be able to kind of be comfortable and settled in that. It's not an easy thing. I didn't know you were 90. I thought you mentioned 90 or something, but it's definitely, I think there is some sort of a, I don't know if I'm overstepping this, Tina, but isn't there some sort of Hindu thing about people who are over 84 years old having met all of their karmic accounts, all of their karmic, I heard some sort of Hindu a sannyasi saying that after 84 years old, you've completed everything and you owe the world nothing. You're on your own. Huh? No, but I thought it was an interesting comment they were making. Said that 84 was a critical age, and 84 is a number that's important to us too. So I thought it was interesting because the person that was doing this was not associated with our program. So, but that's wonderful. I mean, that's I would like to be. And I'm not joking. I mean, I was not trying to. I was making a joke, but I would like to be like that when I'm your age. Obviously, I have very. I feel very privileged if that was the case, that I could have the clarity of mind to say, yeah, I had to do this. It was tough, but I did it, and I'm here. I mean, that's being someone who's a master of themselves. That's the process of master creation. That's very important. I mean, and you know, and like you said, being older doesn't mean all the problems go away. You had to make them go away. They weren't going away on their own, I gather from what you were saying, right? All the family issues that you want to dealing with, you know. So this is the process that we're about. And if we do it effectively, we can live to be 90 years old and still have some quality of life that has some really, you know, value to us.
Or 100, 104, 105. Yes. Oh, Brother Tony, this has been very stimulating, very exciting, right? Okay, we have a few announcements, and then we're going to ask you to do a concluding meditation. Did you want to make the announcements first, Sister Tina? This is Sister Tina.
Om Shanti, everyone. Lovely to see all of you. So just so you all know, every Thursday we have insight sessions, so that will continue into June as well. The theme for the month of June is living with spiritual color and fragrance. And we will have some beautiful speakers, but one very, very special guest is coming. His name is Brother Ken O'Donnell. He's coming from Brazil. And he will be doing a session on June 12th. And the name of the session or the topic is Accepting Change and Uncertainty. So it will be very nice if you all can be here in person, even those who are on Zoom. We will have our beginners course for Raj Yoga meditation. If anyone is interested in diving a little bit deeper and understanding more of spiritual knowledge, then that is on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday from June 9th onwards. So 9, 10, 11, 16, 17, like that. If you go from 9th of June, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesdays for 3 weeks. The course is at two timings they're being offered, 11 a.m. to 12 p.m. and then again from 6:30 to 7:30 p.m. And as usual, every third Sunday of the month, we will have our World Peace Meditation Hour. So you're welcome to join us on these upcoming programs. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah.
Brother Ken is an extraordinary speaker. You'd be very, very, very happy to listen to him. He's actually, I don't know if he still is, he was actually a world consultant. He consults governments and with big corporations and what have you. He's a really extraordinary speaker, and I would urge you to come to see him.
And just one more thing I forgot. June 22nd. So June 21st is celebrated as International Day of Yoga by the UN. And so we are celebrating that here on June 22nd. The General Consulate of India will be here with us, but also other dignitaries, and it'll be a big program. So you're invited for that one also. It's on Sunday, June 22nd, 3 p.m. to 5 p.m. If you want these flyers to come into your mailbox, your inbox, then it's nice for you to leave your email ID with us and we will add you to our mailing list. So you don't have to. I don't have it today, but next time you come, I'll keep them ready. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, we should start since we're already late. We're keeping people up past their bedtimes here, so. We pause. All thoughts, all emotions, all these clouds that float through our consciousness. We just pause them. And look into ourselves. In the moment of that pause, to reach down into our emotional, spiritual center. You go there slowly. But you continue through all the layers of consciousness. Going deep. Until you find that quiet, still point. Point that doesn't move. that holds perfectly still. But it does so with no tension, no energy, just stillness. That emanates calmness around it. So the closer you come to the point, calmer, more relaxed you are. To know there's a place inside of you that sits without conflict, without tension, just still. And you let yourself be enveloped by that stillness. Let it hold you. And let it help you wash away the clouds of thoughts and emotions, feelings. As you slowly come back from that point, through the universe of your consciousness, gently, sweetly back up to your mind. To again engage yourself with the world. Om Shanti.
Om Shanti. Through the universe of your consciousness. I love that, Tony. Beautiful. So through the universe of your consciousness, may you all become masters in the next week. Okay, practice. And we do have one here. You're a delightful addition to this room. Do come back. And let me have your email if you have it. And if there is anyone who hasn't left an email, thank you. This was a pleasure. I know, yeah, we don't have it right now. Om Shanti, Om Shanti. People on Zoom, thank you for coming, everybody. See you next week.